However, he's using this subject, justification, in a sense to answer the question that people would be asking if justification is based on faith and not on works, but on simply on the promise of God and just God alone, then why is it that Israel, God's chosen nation, missed it? And I think that's an excellent question to come to. How does Israel's unbelief and the Gentiles' inclusion fit into this plan of God's justification through grace? And chapters 9 through 11 begin to answer that question. Now, where we left off, we dealt with initially this privilege of justification, beginning in verses 1 through 5, and where Israel has all this advantage, but the pedigree and that whole issue of just having the law, the position they were in, the privileges that they had, that wasn't the answer. And so, although they had all those things, they missed the big picture. And so, when we're looking at this now, he's moving to the second section of its selection by grace. And so we looked at that last week, where it's not based on being a physical descendant. It's not based on having this pedigree. It's not based on anything that we would do, but it's based on the plan of salvation that God has laid out for mankind. And now we're beginning to look at the source of justification. And so what I want to do is this. Last week, when we dealt with this whole issue, we made a couple statements last week, and I think it's important to kind of review those before we continue on. Last week, we pointed out that Scripture reveals that there's an external call and an internal call. That there is this external call that's an outward, or we would call that a general invitation that's given to all men. So there's this call that God simply says, I'm calling all men to come to me. But then we also noted that there was this internal, there was a personal call, and that internal was this. The Scripture teaches it as a transformation, that God places in us the seed of faith. As he places in us this faith, it's a gift of God